All right, 9.2, do I hear a motion to accept the Audit Selection Committee's recommendation for an audit firm to perform district audits?
Madam Chair, the Audit Selection Committee recommends that the board retain the firm of Burkett, Burkett, Certified Public Accountants, PA, to perform independent audits of the school district for fiscal years ending 2021, 2022, and 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Henson. And that was a committee motion, and so it does not need a second. And so now we will have discussion. Mr. Salters, would you like to lead that for us, please?
Sure, Madam Chair, members of the board. Of course, you had a subcommittee work with myself and Dr. Lowell to review proposal responses for our comprehensive annual financial report selection, and we did that, went through that process and scored those offerings. And as you are aware, the firm does an independent audit each year of the district's financial systems and several of our other programs, including our foundation and so forth. So, with that, the recommendation was made to select Burkett, and Burkett for the next 3-year term.
Thank you, Mr. Salters. Is there any discussion, board?
I just had a question about how the meeting was noticed. This is Jada. Did we ever find out if that was posted on the district's website?
It was not. I'll let Mr. Salters
Sure.
explain that.
Ms. Garris, it was noticed in compliance with the State Fiscal Accountability Authority FOIA guidelines, which say that specifically that the notice must be posted either in a publicly accessible location, which it was, at our office of the procurement officer, and on a centralized web page if the district has a web page for that purpose, which we have never established a web page for that purpose. And so all of our notices go up on a board in our outside our procurement office, which is in a public building, which is in compliance with the posting requirements.
Was notification sent to the news media?
It's not required to do that.
I would argue that.
Well, if you would, I'll give you a copy of this document. This is the State Fiscal Authority, Accountability Authority's meeting notice guide, FOIA meeting guide.
But the Freedom of Information Act requires
which
that
is the FOIA meeting guide right here.
To be posted on the website, and it has to be notice has to be
Not
given
for a
to the-
procurement, it doesn't. This is what is followed.
But
So-
this was a public meeting of a public body,
This was a subcommittee of the board,
right? Which means
which is doing a procurement selection. We were following a procurement process.
I would argue that not noticing the meeting publicly is a FOIA violation.
We did notice the meeting publicly.
Not with the news media and not on the district's website.
Okay, and I think that we have documentation that supports what the administration did. We can.
I mean, we can.
Yes.
Sure.
Is there any other comments or conversation, discussion, questions for Mr. Salters or for the committee members?
I think having served on the subcommittee, I would offer up that there probably does need to be some board discussion regarding the RFP, the request for a proposal, because as a part of that, the entities did submit multiple options within the proposal. And so, for example, the firm offered up Burkett, and Burkett. They offered an option A and an option B, if I remember correctly. And essentially, the main difference between the two was option A included the ability to do a procurement audit annually, and option B allowed it for every 3 years. Now, we obviously had some discussion regarding this. My personal viewpoint is, I'd rather know about something at month 12 as opposed to month 36, and the cost was fairly negligible to do a procurement audit every 12 months as opposed to every 36. And so if I need to in the form of a motion, I can put forth for option A with Burkett, and Burkett.
And I'm going to ask Mr. Salters, is that, do you need the board's decision-making on that?
So I'll just point out, the reason it's set up the way it has been is the state procurement guidelines require a 3-year audit. It's certainly within the board's purview to do an annual audit. And so if that's what you would like to do, you can certainly do that. I will say it's a nominal cost associated with that, but it's not a nominal work effort. That has a pretty significant impact on the procurement staff to do that. So, which is certainly at the pleasure of the board. We're happy to do that. If you want to amend your motion or just direct us to do that, we can certainly do that either way.
I guess I'd like to understand a little bit more out of those every 3-year procurement audits, the findings and the opportunities. So, I mean, do we want to make a decision tonight, or can we understand that a little bit better? I mean, I'm not sure out of every 3 years procurement audits if there are findings or the opportunity, because again, it sounds like from a consulting perspective there's cost, but from a time perspective there's significant cost.
Yeah, and you don't have to make a decision on that tonight if you don't want to. I mean, that's certainly up to you. With respect to findings, I mean, as we discussed, Dr. Guyton, in the previous 3-year procurement audit, you recall there was a finding related to ratification of unauthorized procurements that involved signatures not being applied to those forms. And that happened over a 2-year period of time. And then when I took over, we rectified that. And obviously, to Dr. Guyton's point, had you found that out year 1, you wouldn't have had year 2 with that issue. But that's the conversation that we had in our meeting.
Can we proceed with the vote on the selection and then maybe do follow-up?
Yeah, you wouldn't have to take a
Because I would
formal
like to know the
vote. It's just how you,
I'd like to know the staff cost, resource cost for us to do an annual procurement audit. And then we can marry that with the additional cost between option 1 and option 2 and make a decision at a later meeting whether to do that. Would that be all right, Dr. Guyton?
Yeah, no, I just bring it forth because, I think it's deserving of conversation just based off of process and, just the fact that we are a growing and expanding organization. And, with that comes challenges in and of itself. And so, if we can stay ahead of the game, certainly that would be desirable. But by no means do we have to, I agree, I don't think we have to decide on that tonight. But I would say that it is a decision that does need to be brought forth at some point.
Mr. Salters, what would the timeframe be that we would need to make that decision?
Well, I think it would be helpful for us to know that, within a month or two. So we would just circle back with you guys with some information next month so that you can make some decision on that. Okay.
All right. So we have a motion to accept the Audit Selection Committee's recommendation for an audit firm, Burkett. Is there any other discussion, board?
Yeah, I make a motion that we table the recommendation for an audit selection committee recommendation until we can figure out if the meeting was properly noticed, and until we figure out the cost for option A and option B.
We have a motion to table the motion on the table. Is there a second? A motion to, yes. Do we have a second? Okay. Board, we have a motion and a second to accept the Audit Selection Committee's recommendation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Jada.
All right, thank you. And the motion carries.